My daughter-in-law thought she could humiliate me in front of the entire wedding, calling me a fat pig as the cameras rolled and the guests gasped. But what she didn't know is that I would turn her cruelty into the ultimate family revenge, and it would cost her family everything. Before I tell you what happened next, hit like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments from which city you're watching. Your support means more than you know. Weddings are supposed to be about love, unity, and new beginnings. But for me, my son's wedding was the day my world turned upside down. My name is Linda, and I've always believed in the power of family. I raised my son, Ethan, as a single mother after his father passed away when Ethan was just a boy. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and that was enough. Ethan was my pride and joy. He was smart, kind, and hardworking. He put himself through college, landed a good job, and always made time for me, even as he built his own life. When he met Olivia, I was happy for him. She was beautiful, ambitious, and seemed to adore him. At first, I thought she was the answer to my prayers, a partner who would love and support my son as much as I did. But as the months passed, I started to notice little things. Olivia was always polite to my face, but there was a coldness in her eyes, a sharpness to her words when she thought no one else was listening. She came from money. Her father, Richard, owned a successful manufacturing company, and her mother, Diane, was a socialite who seemed to care more about appearances than people. Their world was one of country clubs, designer clothes, and private schools. I felt out of place, but I tried my best to fit in for Ethan's sake. The engagement was a whirlwind. Olivia's family took over the planning, turning what should have been a celebration of love into a display of wealth and status. I was given a list of suggested attire, told where to sit, and reminded more than once that this was their event. Ethan, caught between two worlds, tried to keep the peace, but I could see the strain in his eyes. Still, I told myself it was just nerves. Every family has its quirks, right? I tried to focus on the positives. Ethan was happy, and that was all that mattered. Or so I thought. The night before the wedding, Olivia's family hosted a lavish rehearsal dinner at a 5-star hotel. The room was filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and whispered conversations. I sat at a table near the back, watching as Olivia and her parents worked the room like seasoned politicians. Ethan looked handsome in his suit, but there was a tension in his posture, a forced smile on his lips. During dinner, Diane leaned over and whispered, "You must be so proud of Ethan. He's really marrying up, isn't he?" Her words stung, but I forced a smile. "I'm proud of him no matter what," I replied. Richard, Olivia's father, was more reserved. He barely spoke to me, his attention focused on his phone, and the business associates scattered throughout the room. I tried to make small talk, but he brushed me off with curt nods and distracted glances. After dinner, I found Ethan alone on the balcony, staring out at the city lights. "You okay, honey?" I asked, wrapping my arm around his shoulders. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Yeah, Mom, it's just a lot. Olivia's family is intense. I just want tomorrow to go smoothly." I hugged him, wishing I could take away his worries. "It will. You're marrying the woman you love. That's all that matters." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Thanks, Mom. I don't know what I'd do without you." I went to bed that night with a heavy heart, hoping that the wedding would be the start of something beautiful. I had no idea it would be the beginning of the most painful chapter of my life. The morning of the wedding was a blur of activity. Hair, makeup, photographers, and a steady stream of guests arriving at the grand estate Olivia's family had rented for the occasion. I wore the dress Olivia had suggested, a pale blue gown that made me feel invisible. I tried to stay out of the way, helping where I could, but mostly I was ignored. As the ceremony began, I watched my son stand at the altar, his eyes searching the crowd until they found mine. I smiled, giving him a small nod of encouragement. Olivia walked down the aisle, radiant in her designer gown, her arm linked with her father's. The vows were beautiful, the setting perfect. For a moment, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. But as the reception began, the cracks started to show. Olivia's friends whispered behind their hands, casting sideways glances at me. Diane made a point of introducing me as Ethan's mother, Linda. She works in retail, as if my job was a stain on the family name. Richard barely acknowledged me, his attention focused on a group of men in expensive suits. I tried to brush it off, telling myself that it didn't matter. I was here for Ethan, and nothing else mattered. But I was wrong. As the night wore on and the champagne flowed, Olivia took the microphone for her thank you speech. And what she said next would shatter everything I thought I knew about family. The ballroom was glowing with golden light, laughter echoing off the marble floors as Olivia took the microphone. Her dress sparkled, her smile dazzling, and for a moment, I thought she might actually say something kind. I watched from my table, surrounded by strangers, my heart pounding with a mix of pride and anxiety. She started with the usual pleasantries, thanking her parents for the beautiful wedding, her friends for their support, and Ethan for being her rock. The crowd clapped politely, glasses raised in a toast. Then her eyes found me across the room. Her smile sharpened. "And of course I have to thank my new mother-in-law, Linda," she said, her voice ringing out. "She's been, well, let's just say she's been a real trooper, keeping up with all of us. I mean, it can't be easy, right? Especially when you're not used to this kind of crowd." A few people chuckled, unsure if it was a joke. I felt my cheeks flush, but I forced a smile, willing myself to stay composed. Olivia wasn't finished, but honestly, I have to give her credit. She's always been so supportive of Ethan, even if she's not exactly, how should I put this, a fashion icon or a fitness guru. She paused, letting the laughter build. But hey, every family needs a fat pig at the table, right? The room went silent. For a split second, I thought I'd misheard her. But the look on her face, smug, triumphant, told me I hadn't. My heart dropped. I heard a few gasps, a stifled laugh from one of her friends, and then the awkward shuffle of people not knowing where to look. Ethan's face turned white. He stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Olivia, what the hell are you doing?" he demanded, his voice shaking. She shrugged, still smiling. "Oh, come on, Ethan, it's just a joke. Lighten up." But it wasn't a joke. Not to me. Not to anyone who's ever been made to feel small in a room full of people who are supposed to be family. I sat frozen, my hands clenched in my lap, my mind racing. I could feel every eye in the room on me, some filled with pity, others with amusement, and a few with open contempt. Diane looked away, pretending to be busy with her phone. Richard just shook his head, as if embarrassed by the whole scene. Ethan stormed over to me, his voice low and urgent. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she would." I shook my head, forcing a smile. "It's fine, Ethan, really, don't make a scene." But inside, I was crumbling. Years of trying to fit in, of swallowing my pride for Ethan's sake, of believing that love could bridge any gap. Gone in an instant. I felt exposed, humiliated, and utterly alone. The rest of the night passed in a blur. People avoided my gaze, and conversations hushed as I walked by. Olivia basked in the attention, laughing with her friends, acting as if nothing had happened. Diane and Richard kept their distance, offering no apology, no comfort. I slipped out onto the terrace, desperate for air. The night was cool, the city lights twinkling in the distance. I leaned against the railing, fighting back tears. How had it come to this? How had I become the punchline at my own son's wedding? I heard footsteps behind me. It was Ethan. He wrapped his arms around me, his voice thick with emotion. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's gotten into her. I'll talk to her, I promise." I shook my head, wiping my eyes. "Don't, Ethan, not tonight. Just, let's get through this." He nodded, his jaw clenched. "You don't deserve this. None of it." I tried to smile, but it felt hollow. It's her day. Let her have it. But as I stood there staring out at the city, something inside me shifted. I'd spent my whole life trying to keep the peace, to avoid conflict, to put others' happiness before my own. But tonight, I realized that sometimes peace comes at too high a price. I went back inside, my head held high. I wouldn't give Olivia the satisfaction of seeing me break, but I made a silent promise to myself. This wasn't over. She might have humiliated me in front of everyone, but I would not let her win. The night dragged on. The dancing, the toasts, the endless photos. I smiled for the cameras, hugged Ethan, and thanked guests for coming. But inside, I was plotting. I watched Olivia and her family, saw the way they moved through the room. Confident, untouchable, certain that their money and status protected them from consequences. But they were wrong. As the party wound down, I noticed Richard standing alone by the bar, deep in conversation with a man I didn't recognize. The man was tall, well-dressed, and carried himself with an air of quiet authority. They shook hands, and I caught a glimpse of a business card changing hands. Something about the exchange caught my attention. I filed it away, a seed of curiosity taking root. Later, as I gathered my things to leave, Olivia approached me, her smile as sharp as ever. "No hard feelings, Linda. It's all in good fun. You know how these things are?" I met her gaze, my voice calm. "You're right, Olivia. I do know how these things are, and I hope you're ready for what comes next," she laughed, tossing her hair over her shoulder. "Whatever you say." But as I walked out of that ballroom, I knew one thing for certain. The game had changed, and I was done playing by their rules. The next morning, I received a phone call that would set my plan for revenge in motion and reveal a secret that would turn the Harrisons' world upside down. The morning after the wedding, I woke with a heaviness in my chest that felt like a stone pressing down on my heart. I replayed Olivia's words over and over, each time feeling the sting anew. I'd always believed that family drama could be solved with patience and kindness, but last night had shown me the limits of forgiveness. I was done being the silent target of their cruelty. As I sat at my kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee that had long gone cold, my phone rang. The caller ID was unfamiliar, but something told me to answer. "Hello, this is Linda." A deep, confident voice replied, "Mrs. Carter, my name is Mr. Bennett. I believe we met briefly at the wedding last night. I'm the new owner of Harrison Manufacturing." I nearly dropped my mug. "Excuse me?" He chuckled softly. "Richard Harrison sold me his company last week. I wanted to reach out and introduce myself, but I could see the family was preoccupied." My mind raced. Richard had never mentioned selling his company. In fact, he'd spent the entire wedding weekend boasting about his latest business expansion. Why would he keep such a massive change a secret? And why was the new owner calling me? Mr. Bennett continued. "I also wanted to let you know that I've heard a lot about you from the staff. They speak very highly of your work ethic and kindness. I'd like to meet with you soon, if you're open to it." I was stunned. I'd be happy to. We set a date for lunch later that week. As I hung up, a plan began to form in my mind. The Harrisons had always looked down on me because of my job, my background, my lack of pedigree. But now the tables were turning. I had a connection to the new owner of their family's pride and joy. A connection they didn't even know existed. I spent the next few days gathering information. I called a few old friends who worked at Harrison Manufacturing, and what I learned shocked me. Richard had been forced to sell the company due to mounting debts and a failed investment overseas. The sale had been rushed, and the staff was anxious about the future. Olivia and Diane had no idea. The sale had been kept secret to avoid ruining the wedding. The more I learned, the angrier I became. The Harrisons had built their entire identity on wealth and status, but it was all a facade. They'd humiliated me for not being good enough, all while their own empire was crumbling behind closed doors. I met with Mr. Bennett at a quiet cafe downtown. He was warm, direct, and genuinely interested in my story. We talked about the company, the staff, and the changes he planned to make. He asked for my honest opinion about the Harrisons, and for the first time, I didn't hold back. "They're not bad people," I said carefully, "but they've forgotten what matters. They care more about appearances than about the people who work for them, or the family they claim to love." Mr. Bennett nodded. "That's about what I've gathered. I want to change that. I want Harrison Manufacturing to be a place where people are valued, not just used." As we finished lunch, he smiled. "I'd like you to come on board as a consultant. Help me rebuild the company culture. You have a reputation for integrity, Linda. That's what I need." I was speechless. "Thank you. I'd be honored." As I left the cafe, I felt a surge of hope. For the first time since the wedding, I felt like I had power. Not just for myself, but for everyone the Harrisons had ever looked down on. I was no longer the outsider. I was the key to their future. That night, I called Ethan. "Honey, I need to talk to you about something important. Can you come over?" He arrived an hour later, worry etched on his face. "Is everything okay, Mom?" I told him everything. The sale of the company, my meeting with Mr. Bennett, and the offer to help rebuild what Richard had lost. Ethan listened in stunned silence. "Mom, this is incredible. But what about Olivia? Her family? I shook my head. They don't know yet. But they will. And when they do, I want you to remember something. You don't have to let anyone treat you, or me, like we're less than. Not ever again. Ethan hugged me, tears in his eyes. I'm so sorry for what happened at the wedding. I should have stood up for you. I squeezed his hand. You're my son. I know you love me. But it's time we both stopped letting people walk all over us. As we sat together, I realized that this wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming our dignity, our self-worth, and our place in the world. The Harrisons had tried to break me, but they'd only made me stronger. The next day, Richard called an emergency family meeting, and what he revealed would send shockwaves through the entire Harrison clan. Richard's voice on the phone was tight, almost desperate. Family meeting tonight, our house. No excuses. I could hear the strain behind his words, the cracks in his composure. For a man who'd always prided himself on control, this was a rare slip. I arrived at the Harrison estate just before sunset. The air was thick with tension. Olivia greeted me at the door, her smile brittle. Didn't expect to see you so soon, Linda, she said, her eyes flicking over my outfit as if searching for something to criticize. I met her gaze, calm and steady. Family meeting, right? I'm still family. Inside, the atmosphere was icy. Diane sat on the edge of the sofa, her hands twisting a silk handkerchief. Vanessa, Olivia's younger sister, scrolled through her phone, pretending not to care. Richard stood by the fireplace, staring into the flames as if searching for answers. Ethan arrived last, his face set in a mask of determination. He took a seat beside me, and for the first time in a long while, I felt his support like a shield. Richard cleared his throat. I have some news. It's about the company. He paused, glancing at each of us in turn. I sold Harrison Manufacturing last week. The room erupted. Diane gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Vanessa dropped her phone, her eyes wide. Olivia shot to her feet. You did what? Without telling us. Richard's jaw clenched. It was necessary. The business was failing. I had no choice. Olivia's voice rose, shrill and panicked. What about the wedding? What about our future? You said everything was fine. Richard shook his head, his shoulders slumping. I didn't want to ruin your day. I thought I could fix it before anyone found out. Diane's eyes filled with tears. What are we supposed to do now? I watched the scene unfold, a strange sense of calm settling over me. For years, I'd been the outsider, the one they looked down on. Now, their world was unraveling, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Olivia turned on me, her eyes blazing. Did you know about this? I met her gaze, unflinching. I found out yesterday. The new owner called me. He wants me to help rebuild the company. The silence was deafening. Richard stared at me, disbelief etched on his face. He offered you a job? I nodded. A consulting role? He wants to change the company culture. He wants people who value integrity. Olivia scoffed. You? What could you possibly know about running a company? I smiled. A slow, steady smile that came from deep inside. Enough to know that treating people with respect matters more than money or status. Enough to know that real power comes from lifting others up, not tearing them down. Ethan spoke up, his voice strong. Mom's right. Maybe it's time we all learn that lesson. Richard slumped into his chair, defeated. Diane wept quietly. Vanessa stared at the floor, her bravado gone. I stood, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. I'm not here to gloat. I'm here because I believe in second chances. But you need to understand, things are going to be different now. The days of looking down on people, of using money as a weapon, are over. Olivia glared at me, her voice trembling. You think you've won, don't you? I shook my head. This isn't about winning or losing. It's about justice. It's about family. And it's about time someone stood up to the toxic drama that's poisoned this house for too long. The meeting ended in silence. I left the Harrison estate with Ethan by my side, the weight of years of humiliation finally lifting from my shoulders. For the first time, I felt free. But I knew the Harrisons wouldn't give up easily. Olivia's pride was wounded, and Richard's world had collapsed. They would fight to regain control, to restore their reputation. I needed to be ready for whatever came next. That night, I met with Mr. Bennett again. We discussed the company's future, the changes he wanted to make, and my role in helping to guide the transition. He listened to my ideas, valued my input, and treated me as an equal. As I left his office, I realized that my revenge wasn't about destroying the Harrisons. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my self-worth, and my place in the world. It was about showing my son and myself that we deserved better. The next morning, Olivia showed up at my door, her eyes red from crying. "We need to talk," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Everything's falling apart, and I don't know what to do." Olivia stood on my porch, her designer coat clutched tightly around her, mascara smudged beneath her eyes. For a moment, she looked nothing like the woman who had mocked me in front of hundreds. She looked lost, small, and scared. I opened the door wider, gesturing for her to come in. She hesitated, then stepped inside, her eyes darting around my modest living room. "I never thought I'd be here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know who else to turn to." I motioned for her to sit. "You can talk to me, Olivia. I'm not your enemy." She sat on the edge of the sofa, twisting her wedding ring. "Everything's gone, Linda. The money, the company, the security. My dad's a wreck. Mom won't stop crying. Vanessa's blaming everyone. And Ethan. He barely looks at me." I sat across from her, keeping my tone gentle but firm. "You hurt a lot of people, Olivia. Not just me. You let your family's pride and cruelty poison everything good in your life." She looked up, tears brimming. "I know, I was awful to you. I thought if I acted like them, I'd finally belong. But now I see how wrong I was. I'm so sorry, Linda. I really am." For a long moment, I said nothing. I let her words hang in the air, the weight of her regret settling between us. "Sorry doesn't erase what happened," I finally said, "but it's a start. If you want to make things right, you have to change. Not for me, not for Ethan, for yourself." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I want to. I just don't know how." I leaned forward. "Start by being honest. With yourself, with Ethan, with your family. Admit what you did. Apologize. And then do the hard work of rebuilding trust." She took a shaky breath. "Will you help me?" I considered her for a moment, then nodded. "I'll help you, but you have to do the work. No more hiding behind money or status. No more cruelty." She managed a small, grateful smile. "Thank you, Linda. I don't deserve your kindness. It's not about deserving. It's about doing what's right." Over the next few weeks, Olivia began to change. She apologized to Ethan, to the staff at the company, and even to me in front of the entire family. She started volunteering at a local food bank, working side by side with people she once would have ignored. She attended counseling, facing the pain and insecurity that had fueled her cruelty. Meanwhile, the company was transforming under Mr. Bennett's leadership. Employees who had once felt invisible were now being heard. I worked closely with the new management, helping to create a culture of respect and integrity. Ethan, inspired by the changes, decided to join the company's community outreach program, using his skills to help others. Richard and Diane struggled to adjust to their new reality. The mansion was sold, replaced by a smaller home. The lavish parties and country club memberships were gone. But slowly, they began to reconnect as a family, learning to value each other for who they were, not what they owned. One afternoon, as I walked through the company's new offices, I saw Olivia leading a team meeting. She was confident, compassionate, and, most importantly, humble. She caught my eye and smiled, a real smile this time, full of gratitude and hope. That evening, Ethan invited me to dinner. As we sat together, he reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Thank you, Mom, for everything. You showed me what real strength looks like." I smiled, my heart full. "We all have to find our own way, Ethan. I just wanted you to know you're never alone." But just as I thought the storm had passed, a letter arrived at my door. No return address, just a single line inside. "Not everyone forgives. Not everyone forgets." As I read those words, I realized that while we had found peace, the shadows of the past were never far behind, and the final test of our family's strength was still to come. The letter's words haunted me for days. Not everyone forgives. Not everyone forgets. It was unsigned, but the message was clear. Some wounds run deeper than apologies, and not everyone is ready to let go of the past. I tucked the letter away, determined not to let it poison the progress we'd made, but it lingered in the back of my mind like a shadow at dusk. Life moved forward, but the changes in our family were undeniable. Olivia continued her journey of self-reflection and growth. She worked hard at the company, earning the respect of her colleagues not through her last name, but through her actions. She and Ethan started marriage counseling, facing the hard truths about their relationship. There were tears, arguments, and moments when it seemed easier to walk away, but they kept showing up for each other, determined to build something real. Richard and Diane, stripped of their wealth and status, found themselves forced to confront the emptiness that had crept into their marriage. Without the distractions of business and social climbing, they began to rediscover the simple joys of life. Cooking together, taking long walks, and reconnecting with old friends they'd once ignored. It wasn't easy, but it was honest. As for me, I found a new sense of purpose. My role at the company grew, and I became a mentor to younger employees who'd never felt seen before. I started a support group for women who'd experienced family betrayal and humiliation, sharing my story and listening to theirs. The group became a lifeline for many, a place where pain was met with understanding and hope. The community noticed the changes, too. Harrison Manufacturing, once known for its cutthroat culture, became a model for ethical business and employee care. Mr. Bennett's vision, combined with the hard lessons our family had learned, transformed the company into a place where people wanted to work and where they felt valued. But the past has a way of testing even the strongest resolve. Rumors began to circulate. Old business rivals of Richard's, former friends of Diane's, people who resented the new direction of the company. Anonymous emails, nasty comments online, and even a few threatening phone calls reminded us that not everyone was rooting for our redemption. One evening, as I was locking up the office, I found a note taped to my car window. "You may have changed, but some debts are never paid." My hands shook as I read it, but I refused to let fear win. I reported it to the police, shared it with Mr. Bennett, and told Ethan and Olivia. We agreed to stay vigilant, but we also agreed not to let the past dictate our future. Through it all, I kept coming back to the same truth. Revenge might bring satisfaction, but real justice is found in healing, in growth, and in refusing to let bitterness define you. The Harrisons had lost their empire, but they'd gained something far more valuable, a chance to become better people. The next Thanksgiving, our family gathered in my small but cozy home. There was no grand ballroom, no expensive caterers, no designer dresses, just laughter, homemade food, and the warmth of people who had been through the fire together and come out stronger. Olivia carved the turkey, Ethan made a toast, and Richard and Diane brought a simple pie they'd baked themselves. As we sat around the table, I looked at each face, marked by struggle, but also by hope. I realized that the greatest revenge wasn't in seeing the Harrisons brought low, but in watching them rise, humbled and changed. But as the evening drew to a close, my phone buzzed with a new message. An unknown number, a single line. "You think it's over, but family drama never truly ends." I stared at the message on my phone, the words glowing in the dim light. "You think it's over, but family drama never truly ends." For a moment, the old anxiety threatened to return. I could almost hear Olivia's voice from that wedding night, sharp and cruel, echoing in my mind. But I took a deep breath and set the phone down. We were not the same people we had been a year ago. We had changed, grown stronger, wiser, and more united. The next morning, I showed Ethan and Olivia the message. Ethan frowned, his protective instincts flaring. "Do you think it's someone from Dad's old business? Or maybe one of those people who lost out when the company changed hands?" Olivia shook her head, her expression calm. "It doesn't matter who sent it. What matters is how we respond. We can't let fear or bitterness control us anymore." Her words surprised me, but in the best way. The woman who once lashed out to hide her own pain was now facing the world with honesty and courage. I realized then that the real victory wasn't in the downfall of the Harrisons, but in the transformation of our family. We decided to move forward, refusing to let anonymous threats or old grudges dictate our lives. Olivia continued her work at the company, earning respect through her actions. Ethan found fulfillment in helping others, and our relationship as mother and son grew deeper than ever. Richard and Diane, though still adjusting to their new reality, found peace in the simple things, gardening, volunteering, and spending time with their grandchildren. I poured my energy into my support group, helping others find their voice after family betrayal. The stories I heard were heartbreaking, but also full of hope. I saw women and men reclaim their dignity, set boundaries, and build new lives. Each story reminded me that healing is possible, even after the deepest wounds. The holidays came around again, and this time, our home was filled with laughter, warmth, and the kind of love that can't be bought. Olivia and Ethan hosted a small dinner, inviting friends and neighbors who had become like family. There were no cruel jokes, no icy silences, just gratitude for the second chances we'd been given. As I looked around the table, I realized that the Harrisons' shadow no longer hung over us. We had reclaimed our lives, our happiness, and our sense of belonging. The scars remained, but they were a testament to our strength, not our weakness. And yet, I knew the world was full of people like the old Harrisons, those who thrived on control, who used family as a weapon. But I also knew there were more people like us, people who refused to be broken, who fought for justice, and who believed in the power of love and truth. As the night drew to a close, Olivia raised her glass. "To new beginnings," she said, her voice strong and clear. But as we toasted, I caught a glimpse of a familiar face in the crowd, someone I never expected to see again. The familiar face belonged to Mr. Bennett, the man who had changed the course of our family's story. He stood quietly in the doorway, a gentle smile on his lips, watching the celebration unfold. I made my way over, gratitude and curiosity mingling in my chest. "Didn't expect to see you here tonight," I said, offering him a seat at the table. He shook my hand warmly. "I just wanted to see how you all were doing. It's not every day you get to witness a family truly transform." We sat together, sharing stories and laughter as the evening wore on. Mr. Bennett spoke with Ethan about the company's new community projects, and with Olivia about her progress and the changes she'd helped bring about. He congratulated Richard and Diane on their resilience, and he thanked me for my honesty and heart. As the last guests left and the house grew quiet, I stood on the porch, looking up at the stars. Olivia joined me, her arms slipping around my shoulders. "Thank you, Linda, for everything, for giving me a second chance, for showing me what real family means." I hugged her close, my heart full. "We all make mistakes, Olivia. What matters is what we do to make them right." Inside, Ethan was clearing dishes. Richard and Diane were laughing softly in the kitchen, and the house was filled with a peace I hadn't known in years. The Harrisons were no longer defined by their past, but by the choices they made every day to be better, kinder, and more honest. As I closed the door behind us, I knew our story wasn't just about revenge or justice. It was about love, resilience, and the power of standing up for what's right. It was about breaking the cycle of toxic family drama and choosing, every day, to build something better. And if you're watching this, maybe you've faced your own family betrayals, your own battles with toxic relationships. Maybe you're still searching for your happy ending. I want you to know, you're not alone. There's always hope, always a way forward, even when it feels impossible. If this story moved you, if you found strength or comfort in our journey, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share your own story in the comments. Your voice matters, and your support helps us keep telling these powerful, true stories of family, betrayal, and redemption. Thank you for watching, for listening, and for being part of our community. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, justice, love, and healing are always possible, no matter how dark the past may seem.